afternoon or good evening to everyone, wherever you may be. We are about to start the final presentation or final event for this week-long pre-COP6 online events week. So let me just say that on behalf of the Minamata Convention Secretariat, by the way, my name is Richard Gutierrez. I'm the Program Management Officer for National Reporting and focal point for Indigenous Peoples, Youth, and Observers. So on behalf of the Secretariat, we extend our sincere thanks to all the 22 organizers who've made this week rich in information and truly engaging. The convention thrives when parties and stakeholders come together to share insights, exchange views, engage in spirited discussions in preparation for COP6. Most importantly, we hope that this week's discussion translates into taking action towards the convention's objectives of protecting human health and the environment from mercury pollution. For the final event of the week, we are pleased to welcome Pure Earth. But before handing over the microphone to Esmond, I have a few housekeeping notes to share with you. Thank you very much. So if the moderator opens the floor and if you wish to take the floor, please click that raise hand icon. You can see that on the right of your screen. The moderator will call your names based on the order raised. Once after speaking, please press to unmute yourself and make sure you lower your hand by pressing the lower hand icon. You may also wish to type questions in the chat and send to everyone so people can see all the questions ahead as well. And if you need any technical assistance, please put your message in the chat box and send it to the host or co-host, and we will respond to you as soon as we can. Please help us keep improving the experience by filling out the survey at the end of the webinar. So please help us do that. And then finally, a disclaimer: the views expressed by speakers, moderators, and participants during this pre-COP6 online event are those of the individuals concerned and do not necessarily reflect the views or policies of the Secretariat of the Minamata Convention on Mercury. Without much further ado, and many thanks to Alfonso, Dr. Stephan, Boese-O'Reilly, and Esmond, on behalf of the Secretariat, again, thank you. And Esmond, the mic and the event is yours. Please take it away.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. We in Pure Earth are very grateful to be part of this pre-COP event. Alfonso, can you share the screen? Or
I think Chaif will.
Yes, please go ahead and speak, and it is getting uploaded. So in a moment. Thank you, Esmond.
Thank you. So this presentation will be co-shared by me, Esmond Wisdom Quansah, the Program Director for Africa, based out of Accra, Ghana, and also Alfonso Rodriguez, the Technical Director of Pure Earth, based out of the USA, and then Professor Stephan O'Reilly, the Senior Technical Advisor for Pure Earth, based out of Germany. Next. So just brief on Pure Earth. So Pure Earth is an international non-governmental organization. We specialize in toxic sites identification and management with focus on lead and mercury in low and middle income countries. We work across the world and in 10 country offices in Africa, Latin America, Asia, and the rest. We have over 100 professionals who have been working in over 50 low and middle income countries addressing these issues of heavy metal pollution. Next. Great. So Pure Earth has been working to support various governments to address heavy metal pollution with focus on mercury. So in Peru, Pure Earth partner government to implement a project to restore degraded areas. We've also supported government to implement mercury-free technologies mercury-free gold supply and support women network around these issues of artisanal mining in Peru. In Colombia, Pure Earth also partnered with government to undertake projects around tailings management, mercury storage units, and contaminated site assessment. Pure Earth has also worked with government partners in Indonesia to empower women gold miners around the artisanal mining issues and also the contaminated site assessment. In Philippines, we've also partnered with government agencies there to undertake contaminated site assessment. And Mongolia, Pure Earth also partnered with state agencies there to implement mercury-free gold mining technologies for children. Next. So based on the track record of what Pure Earth has been doing across these other countries, we've decided to partner the Ghanaian government to undertake mercury impact assessment in the food chain. The main study objective for this project is to assess mercury pollution in the food chain, in the environment, in selected AGM sites in 6 regions in Ghana. The specific objectives is to determine mercury levels in the soil, water, crops, and the fish, and also to understand the mercury interaction with the food system. Next. So the project started somewhere last year, I guess, and ended just wrapping up this October with a scientific paper publication. Next. So the project was launched in partnership with Ghanaian Environmental Protection Authority, with the funding from the British government through FCDO, British High Commission in Ghana. Next. So the brief context, Ghana is a country endowed with gold. And so its former name was Gold Coast, because there was gold everywhere. So if you look at the mineral map of Ghana, almost all the regions have gold deposits. In fact, 13 out of 15 regions have gold deposits across the country. ASGM is a key, or artisanal small-scale gold mining is a key economic activity that has dated as far as the 14th century. Our people always mined in a small scale. This provides a lot of livelihood and contributes significantly to Ghana's gold output, especially in the rural areas. A lot of people, over 4 million people, directly and indirectly depend on these activities. However, due to unregulated and illegal mining activities in these artisanal small-scale mining sectors, it has caused severe environmental degradation, deforestation, and waters are heavily polluted across the country. In fact, all our major water bodies, 18 of them in the southern part of Ghana, are all heavily polluted. The most extractive method used in the process of extracting gold is mercury use, And this mercury use has severe health impacts and environmental risk, as we've learned through the toxicology's guidance. Artisanal small-scale mining also, through these activities, bring lead, arsenic, cadmium, which accumulate in the soil, rivers, and food crops, posing tremendous health hazards to the entire population. Heavy metal pollution, threatens biodiversity as we speak currently, agriculture and food security with long-lasting ecological effects. Despite our commitments as a nation, as a country, to the Minamata Convention, I mean, the data gaps and weak regulation exist, highlighting the need for some coordinated effort to address the issues within the mining sector. Next. So this project, as part of the, just a minute, it's a bit of interference. Let me address it. Okay, sorry. So as part of this project's activities, it's based on some of the commitment of Ghanaian government through the National Action Plan, which actually comply with the Minamata Convention. Some of the specific aspects is to conduct baseline mercury inventories and site assessment at artisanal mining areas, monitor soil and sediment, water and tailings in around these mining areas. Also assess bioaccumulation in crops, fish, and foodstuff in these communities. So this project actually, fall in line with the National Action Plan that comply with the Minamata Convention. Next. So the project was implemented in 6 mining regions of Ghana. 36 sites were pre-selected, and after a preliminary visit, these 36 sites were prioritized into 11 sites across this region: Ashanti region, Central, Eastern, Savannah, Western region, and then Western North. Next. So as part of this project, Pure Earth provided training on our toxic site identification program for EPA officials and officials from the Ministry of Environment on how to use the toxic site identification method, to assess the impact of mercury on the environment. Next. So at this juncture, I would like to invite my colleague, the technical director for Pure Earth, Alfonso, to take us through the methodology and the results.
Thank you, Esmond. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Alfonso Rodriguez. I am the technical director of Pure Earth. So I will present the methodology that we use for this project and also present some of the results that we got in this project. So the methodology that we use is called Toxic Site Investigation Program, TSIP. This is a methodology that has been created for us and also adapted through the years. And it was created in order to, in an easy, quick way, to collect environmental pollution data in order to establish a potential health risk for the people that is exposure. Basically, this methodology produces us reliable information and in 2 ways. One is locate where is the source of contamination, and the other assess the severity of the contamination of the site. In this project, we use 2 equipment. One's on site on the field. One was the XRF, the XR fluorescence device, to determine the concentration of heavy metals in soil samples. The other equipment that we used was the Jerome. This equipment measured the mercury vapor in the air. That's the other equipment that we use to determine the vapor mercury. And also we took some samples from water, food chains, it means all the food crops that we found in the sites, and fish. But these samples was analyzed, was certified labs in Ghana through the ICP OES. Next. Next slide, please. Okay, in this methodology, basically we use 4 or 5 steps, but in general are 4. The first one is to do a site review, site investigation, and to try to identify where is located the site, confirm the accessibility, and try to collect the most information that we can regarding with the desk review in one point. The second step is go to the site and define the limitation, the boundaries on the geographical limitation of the site in order to see how big or how small is the site. In this case, we try to involve everything, the agricultural areas, water bodies, and the community. With this information, we design the sampling strategy and do the confirmation of the sampling strategy. And finally, we did the data collection. The data collection is in two ways. One, the environmental data coming from the samples, and the other was regarding with surveys with the socioeconomic information from the communities that is living there. For the sampling, we use the grid. The grid basically are a very good tool that help us to cover all the full station of the site with the same number of samples, in this case for soil. You can see in the pictures how we measure the soil on site. And also you can see in the table the number of samples for each site that we took in regarding with the other samples. Next slide. For the collection of the sample, we follow all the protocols and requirements from the local labs in order to get a very good transportation and the conservation of the sample during the process. So you can see every single sample was identified in order to do the traceability and don't lose the data at the end of the report. That's part of the process normally, but just to show you how we did. Next one. Okay, one of the big challenges in this kind of project is the reference values that we will use to compare the analysis, to compare the data that we got. As you notice, Ghana had been made a significant progress in the regulation, in the environmental regulation, regarding with generate reference values for water and air. However, there is no, at the moment, any kind of specific regulation for reference value for soil or even for fruit, vegetables, or any kind of crops in the environment, talking about heavy metals. As you know, initially this project is focused on mercury, but we also did some extra analysis with other metals as arsenic, cadmium, lead, in order to compare the spectrum of what is happening in the food chain in mining areas in this 6th region of Ghana. Next one. Okay, now we can talk about the results that we got from the project. We will start for air. You can see all regions report at least one sample that is exceed the reference value, that is 1 microgram per cubic meter. However, the most significant distribution data correspond to the western region, and more specifically at the Wasa-Kayanko site. As you can see in the picture, is the most on the right side on the right. How the distribution of the data get. It means that all this data coming from areas where we identify that their potential burner, the amalgam, when after the mining process. Next slide, please. This is to show you how is the distribution in this area. The red points show the highest level of vapor mercury that we found. And in this location, we found activities that is not in place active, but activities that was done using any kind of burning and devices to get the amalgam. So that's part of the process. Normally in artisanal mining, still doing in some places in Ghana. Next one. So for water, we also get some interesting results. Not all of them, but some samples exceed the reference value. specifically in the areas, the Western region and Ashanti region, as you can see on the screen. And again, this is coming from water bodies, the lagoons, lakes, and rivers that is near to the sites. Not all the sites has the same number of samples, obviously, but is in this case, we try to do the most standardization number of samples for all sites. Next one. Okay, one of the most not complex, but the more interesting and focused part of the project was to see what is happening with the soil and the mercury on soil. And basically, if you see very quickly the image, you can see that all sites report exceed values of the concentration of mercury on soil according with the reference value. The reference value that we took is 10 ppm according with the German regulation, and this is value coming from playgrounds where children play. But obviously, if we took this reference value, the concentration that we found in these areas are very critical in specific areas. For example, Kogongo-Songo is one of the sites that present the highest average or mean of concentration of mercury, that is 56 ppm. However, the highest number that we found in one sample was 1,300 ppm. So it's extremely high. It's still high concentration of mercury in some of the sites. Another sites, Kogongo-Odumase, is another critical point that we found in soil, and Pristia is another site. And you see, the western region of Ghana is one of the most interesting area in terms of the data at the moment. I mean, air, water, and soil all together. It presents the most highest concentration in this area. Next one. We are using the XRF device to measure the concentration of mercury in this case, but also we took some samples for confirmation and see what is the correlation between the data. We found a very high significant correlation according with the Pearson correlation in terms of the data. However, doing the recovery rate, there is an estimation of the condition, the field condition. So this is part of the process that we need to take account in future projects and how to reduce this kind of distance between the lab results and the XRF, that is a on-site and in situ screen device to take samples very quick. Next one. Here also we include or identify some mining activities or mining areas near to the urban areas. This is one of the case, Kogongo-Songo. And unfortunately, is the site that present, I mentioned before, the highest mean concentration in terms of concentration of mercury. You can see in the picture that in the north of the urban area is located all this issue, and it's not in the picture, but above this picture is the agricultural area that they produce some kind of crops, and we took some vegetables and fruits to measure as well. Next one. This is the other side, Lake Amposan, and the name is because it's a lake in the middle of the urban area as well, but it's surrounded for some mining activities. So this is a critical point because it was one of the sites that we also found water concentration of mercury and heavy metals as well, the other ones, lead, arsenic, and cadmium. And basically, you can see that the people is living near to this area. The problem exists. And many kids is living there. The school is there. So there is still the problem, this kind of concentration that we found. Next one. Regarding with food, basically more than 100 samples were taken in different fruits, like a mango, orange, coconut, vegetables, to do the analysis. These samples were classified in general groups in order to be comparable with fruits, vegetables, cereals. And you can see that the most critical data that we got from vegetable, the highest concentration are for the Western region. And obviously, taking the WHO reference value for some of them, the value that we found is extremely high with the reference value. It's more than, I don't know, 200 times the concentration that we found. However, there is no very number of samples, is a few for each site in the case of the type of vegetable. But the idea is to see how in the future we can increase the number of samples to get many more precisely data what is happening. Next one. Good news in terms of fish. We took more than 46 samples of fish, and none of them report highest concentration of mercury. They even saw a few levels of mercury that is below the reference value. So we can see that the fish is not problem, at least in mercury. However, next one, please. And you can see in this, for the other metals, specifically for arsenic, we found highest concentration, and also for lead. So we focus on lead initially, but the results from lead and arsenic are very impressive in all samples, vegetables, soil, water, and there is put the attention what is happening in general with heavy metal in mining areas. It's not only one problem. Mercury is one because they use it to get the ore, but what is happening with the other ones? There is any comprehensive program to attack the contamination in all these contaminants that we found. It's part of the process that we try to figure out in all these areas. So thank you. I will pass the floor to our senior advisor, Stephan. Please, Stephan.
Okay. Now, thank you very much, Alfonso. What we tried as well is to look a little bit with more statistical analysis into the data, and I will lead you through this first of all. Next one, yeah. There is a test called Jonquiri-Terpstra test. This is comparing if the different regions are differing or not, and especially for soil, they do differ. They do differ for mercury, for lead, and for arsenic. So this indicates that there are regional variations in soil contamination in the ASGM areas of Ghana. And of course, one message is there's more than mercury only, which needs to be looked at. But there's a strong regional gradient reflecting that it's a spatially structured contamination pattern. This is important for interventions that you really analyze before you come in. Next slide, Alfonso. The results for water were not significant for mercury and lead. They were marginally significant for arsenic. If we would have a larger case number, I'm pretty sure they would have become significant. For air samples, there were no regional trends. And soil is showing the strongest spatial differentiation, and water and air contamination seem to be less regionally structured. I'll come back to this and the limitations as well. Next slide. As Alfonso already showed on his slides, there is a high spatial variability in the toxic metal concentrations across the different sites. So you might by coincidence have a very high level in one area, but if you would have more samples, maybe you find another very high level in another area. And clearly, several locations exceed international reference values or threshold values. The difficulty with reference and threshold values is they're not made for Ghana, so we had to apply reference values from elsewhere. And it confirms clearly that ASGM is affecting the areas in Ghana, and mostly impacted are Ashanti and Western region. So there is a need for region-specific risk assessment and targeted remediation. Next slide. Next. Yeah. On the right side, you see violin plots. They show again the distribution in the different areas, and you see the plots look very different. They don't look like all one violin, so they look like very different instruments. Coming back to the results, these are soil levels. Here you see, first of all, Mercury, and you see the highest ones are in Konongo, Songa. They clearly exceed the threshold we use in Germany for playgrounds. Why for playgrounds? Because it's really a mixed area. Housing and working areas are not separated. So the problem is what kind of threshold do you use? If you use occupational workplace thresholds, it would look different. But this is not an industry area, as Alfonso was showing on the pictures as well very nicely. Next one. Yeah, it's a few more violin plots. The left one is for lead, the right one is for arsenic. And they show which area is the highest. It's the Gruppe Savannah for lead. And arsenic is extremely high in Kononga, Tsonga. So we have severe contamination hotspots. Next one. We try to do the same for food crops, but in general, the mercury and lead and arsenic levels in food is not so different between the different areas, and most values remain low and stable across the regions. We have some single outliners with a high region variability, so there should be kind of local contamination events. So there's a diffuse exposure sources rather than a regional clustering, meaning a lot of efforts are needed for monitoring, because you would really monitor this in much more detail to protect the population from this kind of exposure to several toxic metals, not only to mercury. Next one. Yeah. So we have a widespread contamination, and we have several exposure pathways. We clearly detected arsenic, lead, mercury, and to a lesser extent cadmium. Cadmium levels were in general not that impressive. The pathways is clearly starting off with the soil, not so much with air, and going into the water, and we find in fish and food crops in ASGM areas increased levels. The concentrations exceed international safety thresholds. So one of the discussions maybe for COP as well should be what kind of thresholds could be recommended internationally, because that would make things much easier to compare for countries like Ghana, much easier to call for action. And then, of course, this mixed exposure is a serious chronic public health risk, because these toxins work in a very similar direction. Another result is that there was a socio-demographic assessment, and it's these long-term residents living in the ASGM areas, they depend on farming and artisanal mining. So just to say they should stop farming is not a possibility, because they need these crops and food. And the other problem is there is low educational access, and so it's more difficult to raise the awareness if you really need to come in with health education a lot. And finally, the people really rely on the local food sources, and this is increasing the vulnerability. And I mean, the Minamata Secretariat is called after Minamata, and there was this local dependency on food. But in this case, it's not only on mercury in the food, it's on toxic metals. Next one, Alfonso. We don't have yet the a study on which kind of health effects we would find, but in general, these toxic metals, these 4 metals, have serious negative health impacts. Chronic arsenic exposure leads to severe skin problem, cardiovascular problem, and neurological disorders. Lead exposure is especially dangerous for children and impairing their cognitive development and long-term socioeconomic outcomes. And for pregnant women, it's dangerous as well because it's crossing the placenta and impacting the fetus. Next one. Next one, yeah, fine. Cadmium is contributing to kidney and bone damage and is known as a carcinogen. And mercury exposure, you all know what it's doing. It's mainly the inhalation by the miners, the neurological and renal damage, but showing that it's entering the food chain, it could be methylated, and then it could become a risk as well in the local fish. The fish we found was not very high, but this is all freshwater fish and no saltwater fish, so this could change if you come into a coastal area. Next one. We have several limitations in this kind of project. One is measuring mercury in air. It's always only giving an impression of the minutes you were measuring or the time you were measuring, and the concentration is varying with the time. Of course, if there is some processing, smelting going on or not, and the outside temperature. So the sampling was restricted to specific periods, and peak values might reflect the local smelting events and not the average exposure of the population. And then, of course, you saw in the results that they vary a lot between the different areas, and even within one area, they differ a lot. So there is a high variability in the contamination sites, and we have a lot of soil samples, 1,000, but for example, only 69 water samples. So it could be that we missed with this lower number of samples some of the issues. And then we have really extreme outliers. For example, there is an arsenic level extremely high, but this could not, it's difficult to take the maximum levels and say this is the problem in the area. So this is why on these violin plots you saw median levels, for example. And my last slide. We have some analytical constraints. It was difficult enough to find a lab in Ghana that could perform all this analysis. They could not do any speciation of mercury, and you know how important it is to know if it's elemental mercury or metal mercury in food. It's very similar for arsenic. You would need speciation to know if it's bioavailable or could be ingested or not. So we have total concentrations, and they might overestimate the toxic effects, but they could as well underestimate, because we are a bit hesitant to say, okay, this is all metal mercury. So speciation would be very helpful, but due to limited lab capacity, this would be very difficult to obtain. We have limited crop data and absence of national food standards, making it difficult to assess the risk. And so far, we don't have the exposure pathways because we don't have human biomonitoring levels together with these environmental results. So we think further research is needed, a more representative, broader sampling size, and the speciation and temporal monitoring would be good. And of course, this biomonitoring needs to be integrated in exposure assessment, risk assessment. So thank you very much, and I would like to hand over now to Esmond for the final slides.
Thank you very much, Professor Stephan, for presentation. So we have some recommendations from the work we've done. One of the challenges we've identified is from the governance fronts. There seems to be challenges with regulation and enforcement, and this actually fuels the issues we are seeing in the artisanal sector as far as environment and then the health risks are concerned. We've also noticed fragmented institutions doing things in silos, and that it's also one of the key challenges that we've identified. So there's a need for coordination for this to be done. There also seems to be a very complex licensing for artisanal miners that actually drives some of these people into the informal sector. We have the Mineral Commission under Lands, Ministry of Lands, that would give you a permit, and then we have EPA also sit under the Ministry of Environment, who will also provide environmental permits. So this fragmented complexities actually fuels this informal operations within the artisanal mining sector. There's also limited education around some of these issues, and so most people do not see the importance of adhering to safer mining practices. Next. In terms of the vulnerabilities within the community and the patterns of environmental injustice, from the work, we've observed miners face extreme exposure to mercury and silica dust. In fact, in one of the communities in the northern region, Savannah, Dakrupe, most of the people who are involved in this artisanal mining are women. And you would see the condition under which they work, covered under this silica dust, and also use mercury in processing gold. It's something that is really, really concerning from what we've seen on the field and from the result that we've seen. We notice that from this, women and children are likely to experience chronic and intergenerational toxic risk, that some of them were mentioned by my colleagues already. Contaminated crops and fish heighten community-wide health threats. These are people who actually, source their food and their proteins within these communities. And these activities are actually happening in the heart of this community. And so these are really, really concerns that need to be addressed. We believe that livelihood diversification is essential for safer and sustainable alternatives. There's currently a whole debate here in Ghana around, if you stop the illegal miners or the galamsey, what would they do? Because some of them earn between 700 cedis to 3,000 Ghana cedis, which is roughly about $70 to $300 a day. What kind of job would you give these people that would prevent them from going into this illegal mining? Next. So solutions and policies. The artisanal and small-scale gold mining regulations across these different government institutions need to be brought together in a coordinated manner for people to realize that, this is what we want to go. This sit with this government, this ministry, or this sit with this agency, rather than how it is done with multiplicity of different institutions. At 703, define small-scale mining, but lacks policy coherence. And I think this is something that may have to be addressed to forestall what we are seeing currently. Enforcement gaps and political influence is one huge challenge. This whole thing, for those of us who are environmentalists, or those of us who are very concerned about environment, we want solutions, but the politicians see it differently. And so something really needs to be done along these lines. Stronger cross-sector coordination is essential for sustainable reforms in this area. Next. To conclude, we notice significant soil contamination in the artisanal mining areas, especially in the Ashanti and the Western regions. Several samples exceeded the EPA and an international threshold for mercury, lead, and arsenic, and this is really worrying. Soil was identified as the primary exposure route. Water, air, and food show limited or inconsistent trends, but it's still something that needs to be. Mercury vapor in the air, for example, this is, elemental mercury that people living around this mining sites. Of course, in terms of food contamination, generally lower, metal levels, but elevated in arsenic, and occasional high, mercury and lead in vegetable from the Western region is concerning. I just need to also highlight, even though we've indicated the limitations, we are looking at a popular vegetable in Ghana here we call contomere, and also tomatoes, exceeding the threshold of more than 400% is really, really concerning, that needed an urgent attention to address the issues. Next. So, as was presented earlier, there is a strong correlation between the SRF and lab results, confirming SRS reliability for rapid field assessment. I think clearly one key thing that can be done to support the agencies, especially the EPA and then the Mineral Commission in Ghana, is providing them with this SRF to help them, to measure in situ and get a result of the contamination occurring in these mining areas. In terms of policy, the findings call for targeted remediation, integrated governance, and community-based actions in this artisanal mining sector. Something needs to be done urgently. There's urgent need for human biomonitoring, public health intervention, and sustainable alternatives. We believe if these things are put into action, there is a clear pathway to begin to address the issues. Next. Yeah, so on this juncture, I would like to thank you all for this opportunity, and also would want to acknowledge Drew, our CEO and president, whose leadership we've been doing this work across the world and in Ghana. I think a lot needs to be done, but this is clearly a starting point of building evidence, to actually support and influence policy to address the issues. Thank you, Alfonso, and thank you, Brother Stephan, and thank you, Minamata Secretariat, for this opportunity to share these findings with the rest of the world. Thank you.
If there are any questions on the that you want that's forthcoming from the floor, you can probably take them on. We still have some time. I don't know with the excuse me, with the organizers and presenters, if you want to let's just check if there are any raised hands.
Checking if someone is.
Let's also check the chat if there's a question.
There's a comment here.
There's one question from Laurie Johnson towards the end. Is there a link where we can learn more about the presented data and insights? There's also a comment from David Hunter. It would be interesting to use a continuous mercury vapor monitor over a period of time to get temporal data on mercury vapor changes around the ore roasting sites. So you can cover those or make comments on those points while we still have time. So please go ahead, Alfonso, Dr. O'Reilly, and
Yes.
and Esmond, if you guys want to take this up.
Yeah, Richard. The first comment regarding with the more information, we are preparing a scientific paper. It will be ready maybe at the end of this year. So as soon we have all the information with the supplementary information done, the people will be access all the information in detail with the results and everything. So maybe a couple of months, the paper is ready and is part of the process to publish. Regarding with the David Hunter comment with air monitoring, yes, possible. The idea is see what is happening with what kind of first devices could be installed permanently. That is a quick challenge, or how to design follow-up monitoring program with this kind of intervention in order to go more further and frequently in this area, especially when they are working, because when we visit the sites, we notice the local authorities. Obviously, the miners know our visit and they are not operating at that moment. We don't know if today they are working or not. That's part of the process that is a challenge because they are working with the mercury, strategol, and burning it. Obviously, the concentration that we found in the project now we will be maybe increasing. That's part of the process, but yes, taking monitoring air will be a part of the analysis in the future. I don't know if someone else have any question. I want to raise the hand.
Checking on the possible raised hands, I don't see any. Just double checking now on the chat if there are new questions. No new questions, but you got 2 thumbs up from the question from David. So we are at 5:22, at least from Geneva time. We got 8 more minutes. We don't necessarily have to use all the time if things are clear. But however, I would do encourage at least the three presenters, if you have, we can do a short burst of quick comments or summaries that you want to emphasize from the presentation, or at least to reflect on some of the questions or comments that's been raised. So we can do that if you wish to do a quick summary or quick reflections as we end the program.
Okay,
yes, Richard.
For me as a pediatrician and looking at mercury for many years in ASGM, I'm getting much more aware that mercury is only one of the problems in ASGM, and this project clearly shows that the other toxic metals which are released during the mining process have to be taken into account. So this is the key message I have. It's not mercury alone that is a health hazard for the miners. It's other toxic metals, and it's other things from dust to noise to accidents. So that is my comment and my take-home message. Thank you for the opportunity. Alfonso, you next.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Stephan. Yes, also something that I want to highlight in this kind of project and countries is that we still are finding lack of lab capacity. It means the quality and the precisely of the lab to get all this kind of analysis in African countries still to developing because there is no high quality standards in the lab. There is no good detection limits in some equipment. The transportation or the shipment of the samples is still be a big challenge. So there is a lot of work doing increasing the lab capacity in this country, at least in Ghana. And obviously, we will have all the people that are doing this kind of research studies to get more precisely data, more precisely risk assessment in order to get more precisely intervention and programs to mitigate the risk. That's my comment. And I pass the floor to Esmond for the final remarks.
Thank you very much for your insightful remarks. I've maintained a point that illegal mining, or which is popularly referred to as galamsey, is no longer just an environmental distraction in Ghana anymore, but it's a public health concern. There have been a lot of other studies last in few weeks by other government agencies, reinforcing what we have found in these mining areas. There is gradual contamination in our food chain with activities of these illegal miners. And we are all concerned. My worry and concern is the vulnerable in the community, the children, the pregnant women. These are the categories that are most impacted. We have a doctor from University of Science and Technology in Kumasi who did some study on pregnant women who have miscarriages. And almost 90% of the findings point towards these heavy metals, crossing the placenta and causing harm to the fetus. This is really health crisis. And so something needs to be done. And the role of Pure Earth in partnering government, our mission is to partner government. It's very, very key at this point. And we are open to collaborating with Ghanaian government authorities. We've seen their willingness to collaborate with us to address the issue. The technologies exist to be able to remediate and address these issues. And we believe with our expertise in doing this work in other countries, we can offer government solutions that can lead to these issues being addressed in Ghana. Thank you.
Thank you, Esmond. We have one last question, and we still have a couple of minutes, and I hope you can take it up. The question is from Laurie Johnston. Why was Konongo Zongo toxicity so high? Any of the presenters want to take that up?
Esmond.
Yeah, so Congo is located in Ashanti region, one of the regions with the highest levels of gold deposit, and also increased activities of illegal mining, popularly called galamsey. So that's one of the reasons with the higher levels, because there's a lot of activities of illegal mining, with mercury being the most extractive method used in these areas. And this is why we see that. And we notice that even with the results from arsenic, we have the highest level of arsenic in the soil in that same Konongo. So if you look at Konongo Dumasi and Konongo Zongo, they to combine show the highest level. And that is why we are insisting something urgently needs to be done in these areas where there's so much increased use of mercury in the artisanal sector. And these are not people who have the permit or the license, but anyone can just start opening up the surface of the earth, looking for gold, and then, try to use this mercury in the process. So this is why mercury, we notice these high levels in Konongo Zongo, Konongo Dumasi, in Ashanti region, and in the Western region, where these activities are very much pronounced.
Thank you so much, Esmond, for that clear explanation. So our time is running out, and there's one last comment from David Hunter. Great presentation, really nice oversight and interesting detail. I will reach out directly to Pure Earth to discuss further. Thank you. Thank you very much to all of you who have listened in. I know some of the people listening in also participated in some of the events this week. So thank you so much. We are very grateful for all of your hard work. But more importantly, and I think this is where we come to next, we hope to see you at COP6, not just to discuss, but to actually take up the work beyond COP6 and really help reach the objectives of the convention beyond the discussion and negotiating areas. And lastly, I just wanted to plug in the discussions as well do not end here. For all of you who are joining us at COP6 in Geneva, we still have the knowledge labs during the whole week. We also have exhibition booths, and there's also going to be special sessions coming up on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday for that week at COP. So please check out the Minamata Convention website for details. And our thanks to Pure Earth and the 21 organizers that really made this week both insightful and engaging. So with that, thank you very much, and have a wonderful weekend ahead. And to those of you at COP6, well, we'll see you in Geneva very soon. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Alfonso and team. See you.
Bye, Shifo. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.